welcome back to Gamescom 2019. I'm Louise and I'm here with Matt.
Hello.
And Matt has seen a behind closed doors presentation of Humankind, which is the new game from Amplitude Studios. If people didn't know what Humankind was and don't know who Amplitude Studios are, tell me things.
So Amplitude are kind of interesting. They are an ex-Ubisoft studio, founded by someone who used to work at Ubisoft, and they are kind of a really sort of venerable studio when it comes to 4X strategy games. So 4X games, if you didn't already know, are 4 words beginning with E, not X. So it's explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. So that kind of refers to the type of strategy game it is, often turn-based. Well, Civ, think Civ, and you're along the right lines. So this is that kind of game, and it's a game that they have huge heritage with. They did Endless Space 2, so they know what they're doing. They wanted to make more 4X games. I think Ubisoft didn't want them to make more 4X games, so they joined Sega. So they're in that band with Sega now with a load of other really good strategy developers like Creative Assembly and Relic, so illustrious company.
Okay, so if Humankind, it's not a small thing, right? They're basically taking on all of human history, only you get to create your own civilization, or that's kind of what I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help.
So the clue is in the name, and they refer to it as their magnum opus. So this is
just a magnum opus.
Just a magnum opus, yeah. So it's a big deal. They're doing all of human history, and they're doing it in a way that's really interesting. In that a classic 4X game will probably have you pick one civilization, and you stick with that civilization throughout the course of history. So you get the Mesopotamians going to space or developing nuclear weapons or something like that. But this is really interesting, and it reflects reality, in that we are a melting pot of cultures, and that every stage of our history we change. So it's across 6 different eras, and in each of those eras you get to choose between 10 different civilizations.
Okay.
So you can start off as, say, the Egyptians in the sort of Bronze Age. So you're right there at the start of human history. Essentially, you're a tribe, kind of exploring this landscape, deciding where you're going to settle. You pick the best places based on things like resources, height, defensibility, stuff like that. So it's a hexagonal map that's based on the real geography of the world. So you'll recognise places, but you kind of traverse it in a very 4X way. So in the demo that we saw, the Egyptians founded Memphis. Nowhere near Memphis actually was or is. And then they kind of fast forwarded a little bit. So we saw the kind of the expansion of this city and the way it grows, which again is a really sort of classic Amplitude thing. And then when it ticked over into the next era, they chose the next civilization. So in this case, I think they chose the Romans, that's kind of relatable. Those two things sort of, Romans did follow Egyptians in some places, but when you go really far forward and you start seeing how they blended it, like in the example we saw, they had industrial Germany. So they had an industrial German town that had a modernized pyramid in it. One example had the Arc de Triomphe in a town that had sort of other kinds of notable historic structures. So it blends them in a really interesting way. It's quite ambitious, and it's sort of a little bit kind of not jarring, but it's it makes you look hard at what's there and kind of think about your own history. And each of these races as well, each one you pick has perks to it. So Egyptians, for example, are really good at building, and they come with a chariot unit. And again, that kind of leads us onto the sort of
I was going to say, so combat stuff. I imagine each of the different ages have the very specific sort of things you would expect from said. So you come with that chariot. So how does that affect things?
Totally. So your sort of expectation of what you would think a particular race has in terms of armies is absolutely, they follow up on that. So the Romans, for example, you have Praetorian Guard and things, but then as you go on, and this is the thing that's sort of a little bit strange and I think genuinely brilliant, is the different units kind of merge together. So one of the armies that they showed us had Napoleonic soldiers of the line, so musketeers, essentially the guys with sort of black powder weapons, stood next to Praetorian Guard, and there were kind of Egyptian chariot men and things like that. So maybe not realistic to have all those things lining up together, but they kind of justify it in a really interesting way. So the kind of actual way that human history progresses in it is very realistic. And then you just get to see a sort of metaphor for that in the combat. And the combat is asymmetrical as well. The whole game is asymmetrical. So, if you're playing it in multiplayer, and you can play it in multiplayer with up to 8 people, you're not always going to be on a level playing field, which is kind of one of the interesting things about all Amplitude games. And it's one of the things that the audience wanted, and it's one thing that they're really proud of. It's a difficult thing to make work, but they make it work. So, Matt, we have one final question, which is always the question now. When is it coming? We're going to have to wait till 2020. Not sure exactly when. But next year. So 2020 for Humankind, just making your own history. As ever, let us know what you think in the comments below. Drop us a like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to Logitech G for more videos from Gamescom just like this one.